St Vincent and the Grenadines is an independent country in the eastern Caribbean. The main island, St Vincent, is volcanic with steep mountain ridges, valleys and waterfalls. The Mesopotamia Valley is often called the breadbasket of the island. We went 1,500 feet up into the mountains to the Montreal estate, a 7.5-acre private garden owned and run by a Welshman. The gardens contain a wide range of tropical plants and shaded areas. There are different varieties of coleus in the colour garden. The garden is set on a hillside with many steps and steep paths. In the valley bottom, the stream runs through the rainforest garden. It's taken many years of hard work to make the garden look as wild and natural as it does. At the end of the tour, visitors are given a tot of rum punch. Coming back down the mountain, we passed the new airport and the harbour at Kingstown, the country's capital. Next stop was the Botanical Garden. Established in 1765, it's a complete contrast to the Montreal Garden. Manicured lawns are surrounded by specimen trees and shrubs. In the centre of the garden is a lily pond. Beyond the lily pond is a gazebo which is often used for wedding ceremonies. It's a long walk from the main entrance, which gives the bride plenty of time to change her mind. The only hint of wildlife we saw was this snake in a tree. This hedge is exactly the same plant as the tree on the other side of the path. Another hedge leads to the exit, from where we went back to the port. Barbados is the most easterly island in the West Indies and is actually just outside the Caribbean. Here we met up with Ronnie Carrington, a famous Barbadian photographer. He took us to some of his favourite locations where he gives tips on composition and techniques. We started at the entrance to an old plantation where palms line the driveway. Here he told us to look for different angles within this view. The course was really for still photographers, but many of the tips applied to video as well. Next we went to a banana plantation. The house alongside is known as a chattel house, a timber building that can be dismantled and moved to another location if need be. It was photographed from every conceivable angle. From here we went to the east coast on a windy ridge where it's difficult to hold a video camera steady. The still camera doesn't get blown about, but the viewer has to imagine the movement of the waves. The open countryside looking inland gives the opportunity for many different shots, both panoramic and detailed. In the picnic area at Barclays Beach, Ronnie suggested using different combinations of trees, coastal plants and waves to create interesting pictures, both moving and still. He also suggested that we vary the horizon depending on the view, low if there was something interesting above it, like clouds or trees, and high if not. Sometimes the best pictures involved getting into very strange positions, even lying down, but it was worth it. We moved on to Bathsheba, a tiny town on the east coast, which is the most photographed area on the island. It was extremely windy here. This isn't somebody's washing, they're all for sale. As well as being good for video, there are still shot overviews and interesting details. Here the Atlantic breakers have pounded relentlessly against giant coral boulders, which the surf has worn into fantastic shapes. The hill behind the beach gave one last chance for a flower shot at the end of a very instructive morning. Our last stop in the Caribbean was Tobago, the smaller of the two main islands which make up the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. We docked in Scarborough and went straight to Plymouth Church and the mysterious tombstone which nobody understands. It reads, "She was a mother without knowing it, and a wife without letting her husband know it, except by her kind indulgences to him." Nearby is Fort James, where 4 cannons sit on a manicured headland overlooking Turtle Beach. Here there is an old building made of coral stone. Next we went to see the hummingbirds. A long veranda contains feeding stations for them. Their normal diet is nectar for carbohydrate and small insects for protein, but sugar water is a good substitute for the nectar. Their darting movement makes them difficult to video, but their wings, rotating in a figure-8 pattern 80 times a second, produce nothing more than a blur on a still photo. Their hearts beat over 1200 times a minute. Only on a still picture can you see their true colours. The banana quit also likes to drink from the hummingbird feeders. In the lower area of the garden is a small orchard growing citrus and other tropical fruits like bananas and cocoa. There's also a pond which is home to a couple of ducks called Donald and Daisy. Nearby was sugarcane and a termite's nest. We returned to the ship via the golf course.